absolutely joyful to be here. I've been really excited about this and actually a little nervous. I'm used to speaking to ages younger than you or way older than you. So this is kind of fun to get into a new space and to share Jesus with you and be an encouragement. I pray an encouragement to you. I love to tell this backstory on me whenever I start, at different times when I start different talks. And especially as we're talking today on our identity and not knowing what the future is. And so often we think we know what the future is, and it's completely different when we get there. But God is still there, and so it's good. But we have that anxiety, that worry of the unknown that is before us. When I was studying to become a pastor, I don't know if you know this or not, you have a vicar year. A vicar year is like an internship year. I call it your baby pastor year, where you're not a full-blown, grown pastor yet, but you get pastor responsibilities, so you're a baby pastor. And when you get assigned to become a baby pastor, they typically say your name, and then the name of the church, and then the location that you're going. And my wife and I were really hoping to get outside the Midwest. Oh, if we could get to the beach or the ocean or the Rockies or someplace warmer, beautiful, just not the Midwest. And so I told my wife, if we get a church name that is weird, that's different, then we'll be outside the Midwest. Because inside the Midwest, it's St. Paul's and St. Mark's and Trinity and stuff like that. But outside the Midwest, it's a lot of Shepherd of the Hills and Lord of the That, right? And so we're sitting there for my call service, and they say, Jonathan Enter, and they say, Mountain of the Lord Lutheran Church. And I instantly go, we're in the Rockies, baby. We are in the Rockies. And you know what they said next? Wausau, Wisconsin. There are no mountains in Wisconsin. This is ridiculous. So God laughed at us, and it was fun. We had a great year, and I had a great training pastor I kept saying about my training pastor, you can say that? You can do that? He broke the mold of what I thought a pastor could or should be. It was refreshing to be there. So I learned my lesson in senior year then. We're graduating, and now I'm being a real pastor, you know. And so I learned my lesson of not the funny name. My wife and I are sitting there, and we're just praying, Lord, if you could send us outside the Midwest, this would be awesome. We'll go wherever you want, but please, Lord, outside the Midwest. Please, outside the Midwest. And they said, Jonathan Enter, Hope Lutheran Church. Like, I don't know what that means. And then they said, West Palm Beach, Florida. My wife and I are like chest bumping each other in the call service. We're like, yeah, this is exciting. And we had an absolute joy at our church. We got there, it was a sea of gray hair. Can this stay between us? I know we're recording right now. Let's just like mute the audio. But when you become a pastor and at your first worship service, you're ordained or installed, and you bless the people at the end of the service, you know what actually went through my mind? I am here to do funerals and close the church and get a tan in that little bit of time. Like, if someone's got to preach to the tan people, I'll go be that guy, right? And so it was a great thing, but God, it was so cool. God absolutely transformed us, From 5th to 12th grade, we had one student. That was it, one student, 5th to 12th grade. We had a couple of young kids below that. They didn't really come to church. And by the time we left, we had over 100 kids inside of our ministry in a place with Florida is God's waiting room, right? You know, old people go there to die. And so we found the young people, and God brought them into our church. So it was so cool to think, I'm going to go do this, and then God shifted it to go do that. And then I get there, and I go, I'm here to close this place, and then God shifted and did this. And so often we think we got it all figured out. We know what's going to happen, and we just don't. And it's not just the perception of everything out there that we think we got figured out, but it's also everything here where we know we don't have this figured out. And the problem is our misperceptions, our labels, the things we put on ourselves here, shade and discolor our view of everything out there. It all boils down to your identity and where you're at this moment, this time, inside of your life. I don't know about you. Would you define yourself as a confident person or an unconfident person? A strong speaker or a shy person? A person who's great at this or bad at that? If I asked you to make a list of what you're all good at and what you're all bad at, I'm guessing the I'm bad at list will be twice, if not 3 times as long, right? Because that's what we fixate on. That's what we focus on. When I was a kid growing up, I grew up in Trinity Nicollet, Minnesota. It is a small town of 600 people. Woo! In order to be considered for the homecoming court, you had to drive a pickup and have a mullet. It was awesome. Sorry. But in that small town, I had a small grade school class. And so it wasn't difficult for me in my grade school class of 22 kids to be pretty confident, because in my grade school class of exactly 22 kids, there were only 3 boys. So I stuck out a lot inside of that. And one of the other boys was a very shy boy. Another boy was a very immature boy that the girls did not like. And so I had confidence. I was bubbling over with confidence. When I was in the grade school setting, when I was in the building, when I was out playing sports at recess, I felt good about myself. As soon as I stepped onto the bus every day to go home, this confident young boy turned into this. Because I had a bully on that bus who for some reason had his eyes set on me. Not anybody else, but just me. And every day that bully took my hat, took my gloves, took my coat, opened my backpack, dump it out, give you snake bites. You know what those are, right? No? Let me demonstrate. Oh, he's going to let me do it. This is fun. Excuse my cold hands. I moved from Florida. I now live in Minnesota. I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks right now, and I'm still cold. Okay. Just, full disclosure. Snake bite, I won't do it that hard.
Oh, it's an Indian sunburn. Yeah, it's one of those.
An Indian sunburn.
That's what we call them in Canada.
We're learning, people.
Snake bite is when you take it, your pinchers like this, and you squeeze. That's what a snake bite is.
I'm wrong.
This is the Indian sunburn. That's what we call it in Canada, yeah?
Really? Okay. Now I have learned and shown you that I have no credibility. And we'll go to the breakout session. All right. It was good while it lasted, people. This is good. All right, so what is this for you, though? Like I said, in one area, I was exuding and bubbling over with confidence. And as soon as I stepped every day onto that bus, I was this frightened, terrified shell of what I used to be. Where's that for you in your life? Is it you when you think of your future? Is it you when you look in the mirror? Is it you when you step into home with the brokenness that's there? Is it you when you look into your love life? Is it you when you look at all your friends passing you by because they know what they're doing with their life and you have no clue what's going on? What is it for you that makes you feel unworthy, that you don't match up? And your personal identity is powerful, and it can also be pretty problematic. It can either be really powerful if you got past that and you've grown, then all of a sudden, whoa, where God has taken me from and now to and where I'm going, or it'd be very problematic when we go, I am nothing, I am worthless, I don't match up, I'm not good enough, I'm not there. What we're going to do is we're going to hang out today in 2 Samuel chapter 9. Awesome account of King David. But we're not actually going to focus that much on King David, but a person that King David was affecting, that he had grown. David had grown in his trust, his reliance on God. And think David, the runt of the family, no business being king, and yet God graced him and God loved on him. And David had a best buddy of his, Jonathan, who should have been the next king. Jonathan was the son of King Saul, who should have been the line to the throne. And Jonathan didn't power struggle to get the throne. He knew that God told David, you will be the next king. And so Jonathan let David go and be king. And David promised, Jonathan, I will show love and mercy to your household no matter what, because the kindness that you have done to me. I will fulfill that. God is my witness, I will be that person. And so when Jonathan dies, when Saul dies, and David becomes king, David goes, well, I got to make right on my promise. And so now we have this. 2 Samuel chapter 9. David asks, is there anyone still left in the house of Saul, Jonathan, and his children, royal line, to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Now, anyone who heard this is thinking, yeah, right. David, we're on to you. Because anyone who became the new king, what do they do to the former king line? Kill them all off. King Henry VIII, over 50,000 people that guy killed. Family members, friends, trusted advisors. We got it going on in our culture today. Kim Jong-un, this is not being taped, is it? Crap, it is. The most supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. But if you say something against him inside of that country, what happens? You're dead. You are gone. His own half-brother, allegedly he didn't kill, all right? And so we got that going on. So anyone who hears this from David is going, yeah, right, David, we are not totally buying what you are saying here, but David was legit. So David finds this guy known as Ziba. Ziba was a servant inside of the line of King Saul who would know if there's any family members left, so he can show kindness and mercy. And this happens next, verse 3. Ziba answered the king, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet. Now, as we heard before from Pastor James, the Bible always has something there because it's meant to be there. Ziba could have stopped and just said, yes, there's a son of Jonathan, but he doesn't stop, does he? He says, oh, but he's lame in both feet. He puts a label onto this guy. Now, there's one of two ways of looking at this, and they both narrow down to the same truth. One way of looking at this is Ziba is saying, David, he's trying to save Mephibosheth. This is the son who's lame in both feet, Mephibosheth. One way of looking at this is he's trying to save the life of Mephibosheth. Because Mephibosheth, no one's going to follow him. In their culture back then, remember when Jesus healed the guy who was blind? Remember what the disciples said? Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born like this? So someone had a deformity back then. They were unworthy, untrustworthy at that point. And so either Zib is trying to save the life of Mephibosheth, saying, no one's going to follow him. Don't kill him, David. I know what you're up to. Don't kill him. Or Zib is trying to save David from disgrace of bringing Ziba into his house when clearly this man has something sinful and wrong about him, and David, that'll disgrace you and your new kingdom. Either way, what's happening? A label is defining Mephibosheth. Something about his body made everyone look at him differently, and Mephibosheth look at himself differently. What is that for you? Where in your body do you feel unworthy, that you don't match up? Because you can always find someone who's buffer than you are, who's skinnier than you are, who's more fit, who's taller, who's got a better face complexion, who's, whoa, good looking. Right? We can always find someone else and we go, I don't measure up and I'm not good enough. And every single one of us, I believe every single one of us, we have insecurities about ourselves. And the devil is like water. He finds the lowest point to enter into your life with your insecurities and he exploits that. And all you see when you look in your mirror is that. What is that for you? For me, and this was kind of crazy that God sent me to Florida, where you have beach outings where you go to the beach with your members. I have a sunken chest. And I'm very self-conscious about it. You'll pretty much never see me with my shirt off. I don't even like, when we have parties, I lived in Florida and we had a pool in our backyard because they just gave away pools, yay! And we would have friends over, and whenever friends came over, guess what I did the whole time? I grilled. So Daddy was never in the pool because I'm self-conscious about it. Even talking about it, I feel awful and awkward and weird about it. I wear extra shirts underneath so that it kind of bubbles out so you don't see this big concave that's there, because I see people's eyes that when they notice it and a shirt sits just right, that they see that, and guess where their eyes go? From here down to it. And guess how I feel? What is that for you? And we all have it. We've all got something when we don't measure up. And this is what we see, right? We see this is the actual picture that should have been in the magazine, and this is what actually goes in the magazine. And we look at these images and we go, I'm not that, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not enough, and I don't measure up, and we feel worthless about ourselves, and we're our own worst critics. I don't think any of us wakes up and looks in the mirror and goes, hey, whoa. Right? I don't think any of us does that, right? Here's the flip thing. God spent some extra time on some of us. There's every once in a while the person you go, woo, God spent some time on that person. even someone where you would look at them and you would go, whoa, they have insecurities. I worked at TJ Fridays for many years. That's how I paid for my education and my honeymoon and my wife's wedding ring, and on and on and on. And I distinctly remember, I was in the back rolling silverware. Anybody worked at a restaurant, you have to roll silverware? It's not fun. And so I'm rolling silverware, and I was rolling silverware next to Bree. Bree was really good looking. This is before I was married to Debbie, so it's totally okay, all right? If you're watching, honey, before you, okay? I kid you not, I was so nervous to roll silverware next to Bree because she was so pretty. And I ended up talking to Bree, and I ended up finding out how Bree had barely any friends, was very lonely, because any guy who met her, all they did is wanted to get with her. They didn't want to get to know her, they just wanted her body. And the girls didn't want to be her friends because they thought she was because she was also really shy. And here she is, she's rolling silverware, and she's crying. And I'm looking at this girl, I'm like, you are gorgeous. Why in the world would she have this emotion? Everyone carries baggage burden in connection with self-identity. We all do. Even the people you go, whoa, I wish I could be them, they go, yeah, you don't want to see what my life is. Where's that for you? Where do you say I'm not good enough? All right, so that's not the only thing that Mephibosheth is carrying. As we continue on, David then asks, okay, the king asked, where is he? And Ziba answered, okay, so Mephibosheth, he is at the house of Micah, son of Amiel and Lo-debar. Woo, what does that mean? He is royalty. And has he got his own house? He's couch surfing on Micah's couch, where that guy is. And then, I'm not smart enough to know this, so I looked it up. There's this cool thing called Google, okay? And I put in Lo-debar because I was too busy to pull up my actual books. And the internet does it for you. And Lo-debar, translated by my friend Google, do you know what it means? No pasture. No pasture. Do you know what that means? He was living in the barren wasteland where no one wanted to live, and he couldn't even afford a house inside of the other side of the tracks, in the bad part of town, in the bad part of the country, and he's couch surfing on someone else's couch. This guy is royalty. He should have the kingdom. He should have the throne, and what does he have? He has nothing. And so he looks around, and he goes, what do I have? And I don't have it. I don't have enough. And we do that. You're going to do that. I'm doing it right now. When I lived in Florida, man, did God hook me up. Woo! I had a 2-story house with a pool in the backyard with a hot tub, screened-in porch on a golf course. I left. I live in the cold. I now have this modest 1-story house next to huge homes all around me. Guess what I do when I pull into my driveway? Man, I took a step back in life. And my wife pulls in and she goes, I love it. And she did, but it wasn't what it was before. And we measure ourselves, don't we? We measure ourselves by someone else's TV versus our TV, someone else's car versus our car, the size of our house compared to the size of their house. And you look at friends' things on social media and the vacations that they're going on, or the accomplishments that your friends are having in school, and you're not. They got accepted here, and I got accepted into here. And our social status, we feel inadequate that we don't measure up, and we think God failed on me, and God didn't do enough work on me. God, what gives? And it's not just that social status, it's also our social media status. We have a problem. And it's not just this culture, it's my age, it's above all of us. We do it on social media, and we do it in life. When you go to church, are we really authentic inside of church? Are we really open inside of church? Are you really honest on who you truly are in your social media presence? No, we take pictures, 7 of them, we get the right angle. Wouldn't it be great if we actually took pictures of the disaster that is our life, and we put it out there all the time? But we don't do that. We shine it up and make it pretty. We do the same thing when we go inside of church. And you're back from break from college, or you're starting your career off, and people ask you, how are you doing? And what do? You pick one part of your life that's doing well, and you shine that part up, right? And you put that on display in front of everyone. This is going really well. Look at me, I'm accomplishing. And you talk to your friends like, see how pretty my bright and shiny is? And you feel like a hypocrite because you do all this other crap that's behind you that's not going well. And then you feel even worse because your friend had a shinier bright and shiny than yours. And all of a sudden you go, well, my shiny is not as bright and shiny as their bright and shiny. I feel less than. Plus I got all this junk behind me. I'm such a fraud, a fake, a phony. And we live that way in social media. We live that way inside a church. We live that way in front of our friends. And we feel, I'm worthless. I'm not measuring up. I'm not accomplishing. I'm not doing. And that's our lives. And we feel unworthy. It's just not enough. There's one more thing that we can learn from Mephibosheth that'll get some application for us here. Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. You know who we're talking about, Mephibosheth. He was 5 years old when news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. When Saul, the king, and Jonathan, his son, died in battle, what does that mean? Mephibosheth's now the king. But he's this young little kid, and so people could come and try to kill him and take over the throne. And so the nurse goes, his maid, his caretaker goes, I got to save this kid and run away with them and to protect him. But you know what happened? His nurse picked him up and fled. But as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. So what he was wearing as this I am less than was something that was done to him. It was something that was done to him. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Is that the biggest lie ever? Yeah. Oh. Things that were said on the playground, don't you still wear those? If I can be open, and I've had permission from my wife to share this. My wife, up until about 4 years ago, was absolutely convinced that she was obese fat. My wife is, if you've met my wife, a very beautiful woman. But her entire life, she was told by her brother, and that's what brothers do. Fatty, 2x4 can't fit through the kitchen door. Guess what she wore her whole life? I'm fat. Her mom made a joke once that she looked like a cow. Guess what my wife wore her whole life until about 4 years ago? I'm disgusting. I'm fat. I don't measure up. I'm worthless. And it stole joy. We steal joy. Here's the thing. Her brother hadn't said those comments for like 20 some years. She's been out of the house that long. Her mom hadn't said that joke, which was a really dumb joke, about 30 years ago. But what do we keep doing with those things that were said at the playground? We keep replaying them here, right? We keep re-victimizing ourselves. We keep putting the label of I'm fat, I'm worthless, I'm not attractive, I'm not accomplished, I'm not as good as my brother, I'll never measure up to my parents, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, whatever those labels are. We put those labels on us, but here's the thing. Those labels can be removed. But we put them on, we put them on, and we put them on, and we put them on. Those labels are not your reality unless you make them. You self-fulfill those labels when you choose to put them on and on and on and on again. And others' actions, my goodness, that is so true. We get bullied inside of our life, and so then we said again, I am worthless. If there's one thing you remember from this entire talk that I have with you today, this is the one truth that I want you to go home with. And it's going to pop on the screen right now, and I want you to read it by yourself and internalize it. And I'm going to give you an extra 10 seconds after you read it to let it sink in. This is the one truth I want you to remember. And no. It disappeared. No one, absolutely no one, can make you feel worthless without your permission. You and I wear those labels. We choose to. People will say things to us, but we can realize that's not me. In Jesus, that's not me. And we can remove those labels and know it's actually tattooed on us. Graced, forgiven, loved, cherished. That's what's tattooed on you by the blood of Jesus. But we cover that over with these other labels. But no one can make you feel worthless without your permission. When you feel that way, when you choose to wear the labels, this is what happens. So David now finds Ziba, and he's all excited, and he's going to fulfill the promise. He's going to be a David. He's going to be grace-filled, and he's going to be a David to Mephibosheth, and this is what happens. David says, I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. He's back in the kingdom. He's back to elevated royal status. But what does Mephibosheth say? Because he feels so unworthy, because he has chosen to believe the lie, he says this. What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? Friends, when you and I choose to wear that label of unworthy, do you know what we do? We self-sabotage potential joy. When you choose to wear the label of unworthy, you self-sabotage potential joy. Because God is joying you, and God is gracing you, and God is supporting you by so many different ways, but you miss it. And I have missed it in my life when I have been so self-focused. I miss all God's love. God's reaching out in mercy. Because God says you are worthy. You've been made worthy. Your worth, your value is not found in your looks. It absolutely is not. Look at Jesus. Now, don't look at the picture of Jesus, because he's that olive skin and the perfect beard before beards were cool, right? And a defined jawline, his eyes stare into your soul. That was not Jesus. The book of Isaiah says there is nothing about him that we'd be attracted to him. Your worth and value is not in your looks. Your worth and your value is not in your home or your car or the things that you own, as Jesus had none of that. No place to lay down his head. Jesus gave up all of that so he could reside in one place to live in your heart. Your worth, your value is not tied up in how others treat you or mistreat you. Look at how Jesus chose to be mistreated so that you could be loved, so that you could be cherished, so that you could know in the midst of a world that is broken and fracturing and destroyed all around you, you don't have to guess. You don't have to wonder if you're loved. All you have to do is look at the cross and know that you're forgiven. What are you worth? Well, you're worth what someone's willing to pay. Do you know that you could buy that for $1.2 million? Don't do it. But that is a magnetic floating bed that someone bought. Someone's like, I got a new life goal. $1.2 million. Someone was willing to pay that for that magnetic floating bed. What's its worth? What's its value? This is Honus Wagner. Baseball card. Sold for? Yeah, just about $3 million. Because someone's worth thought it had that worth and value. What are you worth? You're worth Jesus. You're worth the holy creator God of the universe giving up heaven. And here's the thing. If you feel unworthy, you already have everything you need. Final illustration, because I'm out of time. I can't do the other stuff that I was hoping, but maybe I come back next time and I'll do it again. The other illustrations I ran out of time for. This is Terry Horton. This is Terry Horton, 73-year-old truck driver. And she didn't have a lot of money, and so she loved to go window shopping at thrift stores. And she found this canvas with paint splattered all over it and thought, well, that'll be really good to put behind my dartboard. And so I'm going to sit there and throw my darts at it, and then it'll stop them from, finding in the yard to go get them. I'm not sure if Terry talks like that. And anyway, Terry buys this thing for $5. It was originally marked $8. She goes, that's not worth $8. And she got the person talked down to $5. And so she then goes home, and she's about to set it up and hang it up and throw darts at the thing. And one of her friends comes over and goes, Terry! I'm not sure if your friend talked like that either. Terry! I don't know why I'm coloring them like this. Terry, I think you've got a Jackson Pollock. And Terry goes, what the, I can't say the next word, is a Jackson Pollock? And she goes, it's an impressionist painting. This thing that she bought for $5 that she had in her possession is worth $9 million. You have in your possession something far more valuable. This took care of all of Terry's worries and financial concerns and changed her life forever. You have inside of your heart and inside of your life Christ, whose mercy, whose love, whose forgiveness that will not end, that has counted you as worthy, has changed not only your life, but your eternity forever. But only when you realize these can be peeled off. And I'm forgiven. I'm cherished. And you are loved. Let's pray. Lord God, you're an amazing God. You're a grace-filled God. You treat us so much better than we ever deserve. God, we run from you. We go away from you. We surround ourselves with bad influences and bad friends, and that bad company corrupts good character. God, may we be bold enough to remove that negative influence from our lives, and may we be surrounded by Christians that are here among us, that we keep doing community and life like this more often. Because God, if bad company corrupts good character, then good company interrupts bad character. God, surround us with that, spiritual influencers of our peers who are older than us, people younger than us, and we can mentor ourselves. And may we, God, never live the labels that society places on us, but instead to know what we are in you, that we are forgiven and that we are loved. Help us to live that truth. You are that truth. Help us to see the value that we have in you and how you value us. In Jesus' name we pray, and we all say together, amen. Thank you.
Well done.